It's a massive episode of Gettable, afl.com.au's trade and draft show coming up for you right now. I'm Riley Beveridge. I'm joined, as always, by Twomey. Kel.
G'day, Riley. How are you?
Great. What's going on here?
Well, I feel the need.
Beg your pardon?
The need for Reid. We've got Harley Reid coming on the
show.
And I thought I'd dress up for the occasion.
Top Gun.
Yeah. We've got Harley Reid on. Top Gun, Harley Reid, the need for Reid, the need for speed. Can't wait for that chat.
You're going to play some beach volleyball later, are you?
Just so I can chuck off these Maverick sunglasses. Do you reckon
are you going to do the whole show in that?
No, I'm about to take it off. I'm going to take it off right now, actually.
Okay,
so
you do
you
so I can choose what's going to happen for the rest of the show. We are speaking to Harley Reid, of course, the potential #1 pick in this year's draft class. We've got plenty more on the agenda on Gettable, though. We'll be looking at our takeouts from the weekend. If there was a mid-season trade period, who would be in the eyes of clubs? Who could be gettable? Who could not be gettable? And speaking of gettable or not gettable, we're bringing back the gong in just a little bit as well. The gong will be out. We'll be asking gettable or not gettable. We put out the request to our Instagram listeners. You're back in your kit, which is good. We like that. We put out the request to our Instagram listeners on Tuesday night. Who is gettable or not gettable? Follow us at Gettable. At Gettable, and you can get involved in that in going forward. We'll take some of your requests as well, and we'll listen to it.
As always, we also want to get into the Gettable Gospel.
Yes.
And a big one this week, Riley, because I heard something on Gary and Tim, our friends, Gary Lyon and Tim Watson, and it just made me wonder around sort of the patenting of Gettable and where we sit on things. Let's have a listen to this.
Are you gettable?
Well, I like to think not, but I'm like everyone else. You can get a sprinkle and it can just put you off the scent for about 3 weeks. And then
You're gettable.
You dust it off and then you can go again.
You are gettable.
3. 2 things. Sprinkles and wands and gettable. This is our domain, Gary and Tim. Now, that's the first warning. Just stick clear of gettable from here on. We do like your support, though.
It's very calculating of you.
Nice. And also, just a little bit, this is now taken over. We've been doing the Gettable Gospel for a good... How's my collar?
It's going well.
Been doing the Gettable Gospel for a good 6 weeks now. I just wanted to put together a Lord Supercut. Here it is.
Gettable. 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 Gettable.
I like it. Supercut of us.
That's because you like Lord.
We did. We went and saw Lord together, of course. Cal, big round of footy, round 9. What did you take out from the weekend, from a trade and draft lens?
A few things, Riley. Let's get into it, because I think Carlton, they're the talk of the town, clearly.
Yeah.
I think they need another game breaker forward half.
Yes.
Centre forward. So that dose of speed and class between the midfield and forward line, the link-up player, the guy who can finish off. We know they went for Tom Papley a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Hindsight's a beautiful thing. He would have been so perfect for them, the player that he's become. There's one on the free agency list, though, now that I'm looking at, and it's Jade Gresham. Now, he'd be a missing piece for them, I think, with his ability in both areas off the ground. That's the bit that fits. Mm-hmm. There's some things that work against it, or some challenges that would have to be worked through to make it happen. Now, he hasn't been in super form this year. I think that's fair to say. He's been on a 4-year deal of around $800,000 leading up to this year.
Yep.
He signed at a really good time for his career, and when the Saints probably didn't have as many players in that bracket. So he wouldn't be at that level for his next deal at this rate. And he's a small forward who, at the moment, goes into the midfield rather than the other way around. But the other question is, and people ask around Carlton's cap, I don't think that's as much of an issue in terms of attracting a player as some might think, because the thing about it is that when you have Charlie Curnow signed to 2029 and Harry Mackay to 2030, that gives huge flexibility. So they can back-end deals, you can push money around, you can underpay a player for the certain year, but also pay them back in a couple of years' time, knowing that you've got so many years to work with. So that's the beauty of the long-term deal. And the long-term deal, in this case, could give them some opportunities to say, Gresh, let's press some flesh and come down to Icon Park, because I feel like that's a really good fit. You've written on the Blues as well today.
They need I dug into the stats and why they've lost 4 of their last 5. They need a front half player. They've got no class going inside 50. They're one of the worst teams for kick rating going inside 50, and they need a midfielder that can get forward of the ball and do some damage. And they also need another target inside 50 to help with Curnow and Mackay. So I think that's a perfect one for them.
Just the other thing while we're on it, I mean, those long-term deals, they do give flexibility. They're also needed to attract players. So if you're going to go and get a free agent, in any case, you need to be the best of the market.
Yep.
like, Aiden Call was on a 5-year deal at about $550. And that was signed in 2020. But he had other suitors around that time. You have to be at the front of the queue with a long-term deal to make it happen. $550 is about $140,000 more than the average wage last year.
Yeah.
So that's not overs, but you have to offer long-term to get someone to change clubs.
Yep.
Another thing, Gold Coast will have its first pick on the table. The trade table.
Yes.
That is a gettable pick. Where's the...
Get the gong out.
Get the gong. It's too early for the gong, but... The form of their 3 academy players in Jed Walter, Ethan Reid and Jake Rogers means the Suns' first pick is likely to be eaten up by a bid. I'd say firstly by Jed Walter. He was outstanding early in the academy game on the weekend. Big, bustling key forward, ran out of the square, just set up some things and has some real presence about him. Kicked 8 a couple of weeks ago for their academy. So the Suns are going to be fielding offers for that selection from clubs with more points and picks later in the draft or future picks, given they already have a stack of picks already in terms of preparing for this. They knew that this was coming. So there's going to be a market for that pick. And that might even be for them to go and say, we've got this pick. What player can we get for a top 10 pick if they finish outside the top 8 at this point? Everyone knew Walter and Reid were going really well. And Reid's a key forward ruck who can move around the ground 200 centimetre plus and has real athleticism. I think the form of Jake Rogers, though, might have surprised a few to put him inside that first round range. Medal winner for the AFL Academy, 27 disposals, 6 clearances for the Academy last week in that game at Marvel Stadium. They knew they had a good group, but it's going better than they probably thought, I think, in how well that trio is coming together. It's like you board the plane, you get premium economy, and you get told you're going up to business class. Next, you're looking at Jack Harlow up in first class. Where do we stretch the legs out? Give us a glass of champagne.
Well, Jed Walter and Ethan Reid would need to stretch the legs out in the plane.
They would. What have you seen?
I've got lottery fever, Cal.
Oh, can we check your temperature?
You saw the office earlier this morning, and everyone crowded around the TV watching the NBA draft.
I didn't know what was happening.
I think this is needed to reinvigorate the way that the draft operates at the moment, and it's topical because we've got Harley Reid coming on in a bit, but it's topical also because Hawthorn's playing West Coast this week. I just think that I think it's the most even way, and it avoids a situation where games like this weekend's game become important, just depending on who loses as opposed to who wins. So I think it sort of alleviates tanking in a sense. I think the way you can do it is bottom 6 normally finish. So 6th and bottom normally finishes 2 or 3 games outside the 8, so you're not going to tank to get into the bottom 6. So I reckon the bottom 6 is perfect for a lottery. Whoever finishes with the worst record in the comp has a 40% chance of pulling out the number 1 pick. They get 40 balls out of 100 in a pot. Second bottom gets a 25% chance. Third bottom gets 20%, so on and so forth.
So who came last in the NBA?
Well, the Pistons finished last, and they got picked 5. So sometimes you can just get unlucky in this year's draft. The Spurs had the second worst record, and they got pick 1.
They got pick 1?
Yeah.
Who?
The San Antonio Spurs. Your club, Cal. Your franchise. They tweeted out a video of you back in the day. What was that about? Speaking about...
It was about their Aussie...
Was it about Paddy Mills?
Paddy Mills.
Yeah.
And they used some vision of myself and Kevin Sheen talking about Paddy Mills in a video we did here on AFL.com.au. Went out to millions of people. That was
so I reckon that could spice up the lottery, spice up the way the draft works.
The
mid-season buy needs a content creator. This is the content creator.
Mid-season draft.
Not the mid-season buy. The end of season buy. Before the finals.
Gotcha, sorry. I would say I'll counter it. What the worst team needs the best player, doesn't it? That's
is the number 1 pick always the best player anyway?
The biggest equalisation plank is having the option.
Is the number 1 pick always the best player?
Not always.
Draft?
Definitely not always. But then it gets the average decreases with every pick.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
We get stuck with pick 6.
Also, just while we're on that,
although pick 6 going pretty well last year,
I want to just send a message out to Hawthorn supporters because I know they're very invested in Harley Reid. They're not the worst side in the competition. I think they're on another tier to North Melbourne and West Coast, and I think the second half against Melbourne last weekend depicted that in the sense that they've just got so much more backbone to them, and they've got so much more about them with their list and what they're building under Sam Mitchell.
I think they're going pretty well long term as well. Very, very quickly before we get to the next segment, also think Port Adelaide's going to be looking for a ruckman.
Okay.
They've across this year consistently lost the hit-outs. Now, we know that the hit-outs is a stat that can be manipulated. It doesn't always mean everything. Their midfield's going super. They've won 6, 7 in a row. But, yeah, they lost last week. They're asking a lot of Bryn Teakle in that role. think they've got high hopes for Dante Vicentini, who's a youngster, but there's probably a gap there for a bridge ruckman, I guess you'd call it, between the next 3 to 4 seasons. So I'm interested to see how that one plays out.
Well, just on that, Cal, if there was a mid-season trade period, we know there's a mid-season draft coming up in a couple of weeks, but if there was a mid-season trade period, who do you reckon would be on the radar? Would Port be targeting a ruckman, for example?
Well, I think there's definitely moves abound to get a mid-season trade period happening. And there's going to be some counters to what is available on each club's list. And we're not going to say here that, you know, the best players from the bottom team should go and join a great team at the top of the ladder. We're not suggesting that Will Day goes and joins Geelong at the mid-season
I'll
point.
tell you what, that'd be something.
So he can win a premiership and sail off into the distance. We're talking about players who are out of the fringes or out of the selected best 22 or 23 most weekends, or have been in and out and might be gettable if there was a mid-season trade period in the next couple of weeks, like I probably think it is next year. So I'm going to put Scott Lysette to Collingwood. He's been outside Port Adelaide's side. Collingwood needs that backup ruckman in case something happens to Mason Cox and Darcy Cameron again. They are that close to winning the premiership, Collingwood, this year, alongside Melbourne and Brisbane, I think, as the main contenders, with Port a step back. But he's not playing at Port Adelaide. I think that'd be a no-brainer for if the Pies were able to have a mid-season trade period. Might even fit at the end of this year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Tom Fullerton's another one. A name that some people might not know, from Brisbane to Fremantle. So Fremantle are still backing themselves in to get a little bit better across this year. Their form has improved the past couple of seasons. Kicked 6 in the VFL last week for Brisbane. 19 goals from 7 games. Gives the Dockers some forward firepower. So I'd be targeting him and saying, you can't get a game with Joe Danaher and Eric Hipwood and Oscar McInerney. Come west.
I like it.
Go west.
I like Jake Riccardi to Essendon. The Bombers are going to be in the finals picture. I know they've lost 4 in a row, but they've still got 2 games against West Coast and 2 games against North, so that's at 4 wins guaranteed. So I think they need to keep forward. Peter Wright's obviously gone down with an injury. We're not sure how he'll return when he does come back.
Harry Jones as well.
Exactly. So why not Jake Riccardi? Has been out of the picture in the Giants side with Aaron Cadman coming in over the last 4 weeks. He's kicked 13 goals in 4 games. He's uncontracted beyond this year. Would he be an option for them? Adam Tomlinson, someone that's on the outer at Melbourne. I think he's done a pretty good job when he's actually played this year. He's only played the 3 games, but he's actually played really well. 11 games across the last 2 years at Melbourne. He was gettable last year. I wonder if a side like Sydney, who have so many key position injuries at the moment, Marty, Laddams, the 2 McCartons, Rampy, Reid, they need key position players. Could they be an option for him? He's already got roots in Sydney as well, obviously. He used to play at Greater Western Sydney, so he's got roots there. And taking a different look at it, I wonder if someone like a Devon Robertson could be of interest to West Coast now. So, and the reason I say this is I think Victorian clubs are going to come for Dev Robertson at the end of the year. But is a mid-season trade period, would that be the perfect time for a club in West Coast position who's struggling a little bit? Could they get on the front foot, make a move early, potentially get him at a cheaper price, potentially pay a little bit over the odds to avoid being involved in a bit of a race to sign him at the end of a year if they were to do it? He's uncontracted beyond the season. He's only 21, so he fits their age profile as well. It's not like they're getting a short-term measure to help out a struggling side. He's going to be someone that's going to be a long-term player for them if he does go. So I wonder if that's an option for a club to sort of get on the front foot in situations like these as well.
Well, that's what I think the mid-season trade period would be about, those type of players, the guys who can't quite get into that senior team at the moment. A couple of other names that I think would be floated if it was happening. In the hypothetical gettable world that we live in. Jack Billings, he's come back from his injury, but you know he might seek an opportunity somewhere else with a bit of time to run in his contract. Tom McDonald, he might play this week, but he's someone who's been, again, probably jumped in the queue by Jacob Van Rooyen at Melbourne. Mitch Hannon and Buku Kamas at the Bulldogs, in and out there. Trent Bianco at Collingwood. Jared Lyons is one that, and this is where it comes down to the player. Does the player back themselves in and say, no, I'm not leaving a good team because there's a chance of 2 injuries in the finals and then I can stumble through and win a premiership? Or do you want to go somewhere else and get an extra year out of your deal or something like that? So that's where it becomes a really professional v.
And history is a little, like, look at Townsend and Jack Graham in 2017 at the Tigers. Like, history's a little riddled with those type of stories. Cal
Coleman-Jones is another one as well who could be in that sort of frame.
Kicked 9 on the weekend.
Did he? Just on the mid-season trade period, I think it's a bit like a new season of The Bachelor. We know it's coming, but do we really need it? You like that one?
I did. It was good.
I'm not sure the game needs it. Now, I know we talked about it. It's great content. It's interesting. There's opportunities that are going to be afforded to different players. But I think there is an art about putting together a list for the whole of a year and where that goes. And I think it probably disadvantages the non-Victorian sides is being able to relocate players.
Yeah.
It's much easier moving from Carlton to Moorabbin. It's a lot more difficult moving from Richmond to Subiaco.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's a challenge. The other side of it is, of course, that it can help clubs who trade out a player for a pick. They can use it later in the year. So you might, as you spoke about with Dev Robertson, you might get something for a player who might have some value to a team right now. But I'm not sold on it being a perfect fit for the game.
Okay. Well, it's going to be an interesting one to watch over the next 12 months.
Are you a Bachelor fan?
No, I did one season, but never went beyond that.
Fair enough.
I'm very excited about our next guest, Cal.
Where's the Sunnies?
So, someone that we've been wanting to get on for a very long time. We'll have Harley Reid in the studio. Well, Cal, we've been excited about having this guest on for quite some time now. It is Bendigo Pioneers star Harley Reid. Harley, thanks for joining us on Gettable.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's been a long haul getting you here, but we appreciate it.
Yes, it's been a long time coming, but glad I'm here.
It's been a big year for you, Harles. We've got a lot to talk to you about, and we appreciate you coming in what's a busy time. How have you found it all? First and foremost, it's been a massive season for you. So much chat about you. How have you found it?
It's been a roller coaster to be honest. A lot of travelling goes into it. A lot involved, but just enjoying it week by week, and trying to find the balance between school, footy, and just social life. So
how are you finding that?
It's good. It's tough. Like missing a bit of school, which I suppose I'm not really complaining about, but it's good.
Recently, you had some exposure to the VFL through a couple of games with Carlton. How did you find that experience?
That was unreal. It was good. We had about 14 or so listed AFL players playing each week, so that was a great experience to play with them and probably learn traits off them, really. So it was good. And even playing against Brisbane too, they were top side. So the barometer, so it was good.
How'd you go against him?
It was. He got into me at the start. Actually, I was a bit stunned, to be honest, but. No, it was good. The boys were telling me if I kick me first goal, do the shotgun at him. So I was like, I would have loved that. But
you got a few different experiences within that Carlton VFL program. You spent a bit of time across half back. You played in the midfield as well, and against AFL listed players, as you mentioned. How did you find those different experiences?
It was good to take on new roles, obviously, and there's a lot of tactics and game plans that go into it. So probably learning that was it took me a bit to get used to that first game. It took me a bit to find my feet, but that second game I felt like I belonged there and I created a few good relationships over 2 weeks. So I really enjoyed it.
And you've spent some time at a few different club experiences now. You had a bit of a train at the Blues as a bottom major. Watched you train for a week or so at the Bombers in January. It was a practice game actually where they threw you in the middle. You played against Port Adelaide as well in the sample side for the AFL Academy about a month or so ago. The Bombers time, that whole week and what you got out of that?
It was really good. It's probably just that professionalism. Like, I suppose outside of the footy, I got to spend a lot of time with Ben Hobbs, Paddy Voss, Cole Langford. I was lucky enough to stay with him. It was just so good to get that experience outside of the footy.
Did it help you register what it would take to get to the next level and play AFL? Was that your first real taste of what it would need to get to that level? Yeah,
for sure. It was good. When I was at Carlton, I was in season, so I got to get that taste of that, and then pre-season at Essendon.
Yep.
So it kind of gave me a stance of what it's like, and both inside and outside. So I really enjoyed it.
Obviously, you had a big year last year as well.
An amazing year.
As a bottom major.
Big is an understatement, Rolls.
It was incredible. We watched you upstairs at Marvel Stadium nearly change the game in that last Vic Country match. But what did that teach you about the journey and what you'd have to get through, and obviously working with and alongside and even against when you played against a couple like Vic Metro and Will Ashcroft and guys like that, about what it would take? I
feel like, I just love the challenge, playing against bigger bodies, more hype people, you know what I mean? There I was probably just down, not really knew who I was, I wanted to make a stance, and those are probably the moments that I love, when the game's on the line, just like a Toby Green, Dusty Martin, they're there when the game's there to be won.
Yep.
It's set up some big expectations for you. The roles have been reversed to some degree this year for you. How's that been to handle? Because you come into this year with huge expectations based on what you achieved last year. Have you worked through that? How's it been to experience that?
Yeah. So I suppose, I don't know, it's weird being like a little rural community boy, down the country, bit of a bogan. I don't know, it doesn't really get to me. It doesn't really feel like it's real, like reality. So, yeah, it's good. I'm really just sat well down there with people around me and the support they show me. So, I really appreciate where I am, and yeah.
Has there been a moment where it sort of has become a little bit more surreal for you? And I don't know, when it was the first time you got tipped to be the number one pick, or when that started to become the norm?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really feel real. Like, when it happens, I'll probably feel more reality. Like, I look back a couple of years when you see all the hype about Dacos and that, but when you realise it's you, you just still don't really feel like it's you.
It's gone a bit crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Has it been overwhelming at all?
Oh, no, not really. Yeah, it's good. Like, I don't know, it's weird. When I come to Melbourne, it's a lot like it's real.
Yeah.
But when I'm back home, it's just like I'm the normal Harley, which I love, having that balance in between that.
Absolutely. No, it's a great approach to take. Tell us about Tongala.
Yep.
So a couple of thousand population.
Yep. Well, takeaway, IJ, and a pub, that's about it. So,
can I come up later in the year? I want to come
sure.
up. You want to show me around Tongala
I'll show
for
the
a
ropes.
day?
Yep, good man.
He's still working behind the till?
No, gave that up. It actually burnt down.
Oh.
Yeah. They gave me one job, turn off the stove, and I totally forgot about it.
You're joking there.
No, actually, it got burnt down. So,
have your expectations had to change throughout the season? Like, how have you looked to grow your own game this year as the expectations have changed throughout the season?
Not necessarily. Still probably like that values I really had in each week, week in, week out, and then probably that professionalism outside of footy. Do you get a lot of questions about the draft? Like, do you get questioned by people? Nah, not really. No. Yeah. Oh, nah. The DMs go off a bit. But, yeah. Try to stick out of them.
So, you're a Geelong supporter?
Yep.
How were you feeling when they were 0-3 at the start of the season?
No comment.
Are you keeping an eye on the bottom of the ladder? I mean, it's only natural. We all are.
Yeah.
There's a game coming up that's going to have some consequences there when Hawthorn plays West Coast. These things are going to be talked about a lot. Are you keeping an eye on who's the clubs that are around that part of the draft?
Nah, not really. No, not at all. I suppose we're only not even mid-season yet, so there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Last year was a big one on a few fronts. You had to go through the process of picking a manager as well.
Yeah.
Nick Gation, the manager, is out for that.
But not say the year, eh?
From Connor Sports Management. Did you want to get that over the line before you hit your draft age as well, and to make that decision? Because that is part of being a highly touted player too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I suppose I went through a lot of circumstances with it. I suppose it was right to take my time with it, like being. Bottom age. I still had a long time to go, so sat down with my uncle, and probably he's got a lot of knowledge in that area. So we sat down for probably 6 months or so. We sent out a message to all of them and said I'll make my decision at the end. Like, thanks for coming at me. Like, appreciate it. It was good to get a couple of feeds, and then we sat down and found like it was the right decision for me at the time. So so happy with it. Speaking of your uncle, I've got a present for him after this. He might have a T-shirt coming his way. Just on moving, like there's a chance you move out of Victoria. You're definitely moving out of Tongala, whether you like it or not. What about moving out of Victoria? How does that sit with you, the potential of that? Yeah, obviously, like another thing, haven't really thought about it as much. Still a long way to go, but I don't know, I'm really family orientated. Obviously, from country boy, but yeah. What happens. We've spoken a lot today about the pressures that you face. Have you sort of sought advice from anyone, either in the system, out of the system, about how to deal with this year and what's to come? Jason Gilby, for example. I've spoke to him a couple of times about it, but Riley, you don't get much out of him. Riley made him famous. I was the one. Oh no! wrote the milk story. Yeah, no, good. He loved that. I still feel bad about it. What about I spoke to Christian Petrarca recently. Yeah, and he mentioned that you guys had sort of swapped a couple of messages. On Instagram and even that photo. That we've seen as well of you guys back at under 12s level. Yeah. Is that kind of funny to look back on? Yeah, buddy. I love that. It was funny because we're at the airport and like we got that weird look. I was like, yes. And then
like couple of minutes later, got a message from him, and we just spoke for a bit on there, and then I swiped up, and it was like 2017. That was when I was under 12. So it must have been like that day when I got the photo. I DM'd him and sent it to him, and I was like, I said something like, "Geez, that's awkward." Like for the photo, he goes, "I can't see it," so I screenshot it and sent it to him, and he just loved it.
I think he said that'll look good when he wins Brownlow.
Then I said it'll look good when he's presenting it to me. So.
That's a good response. Love it. Very quick. We've got to ask you, what are your thoughts on the AFOs? Cal's been got it catching on at the moment.
Nah, I love it. It's good. Needs to get more recognition.
Recognition,
Yeah, recognition.
I agree with you.
No, I feel like other people should get into it too. Like, it's good. It makes you feel good.
So, just on the AFO, for those who are just tuning in for the first time, effective fend-offs, which Harley has done a lot off this year. I think, now, you can disagree with me, I think there's been a couple where you might have gone out of the way to do the AFOs.
Yeah. No, I just felt like the game was getting a bit boring. Need to fire it up.
What are your thoughts? A couple more things. What are your thoughts on the Need for Reid slogan that we've rolled with?
Yeah, no, it was good. It's something hard. Like, you can't really think of much for Reid. It's pretty boring. But no, it was good. You did well.
Now, we came to Bendigo. One more thing. We came to Bendigo a few weeks ago. Did catch you signing autographs after the game.
Yeah.
Were you surprised as you?
Yeah,
you looked
I
pretty
was
surprised.
stunned. Yeah, I was like, yeah, right. And they were pretty old, so I was like, yeah, I love this. And I was signing a Burley footy too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's a country footy.
Yeah,
last one.
So good.
Are we sticking with the headband? Is that
Yeah,
gonna?
I reckon we're gonna have to. Yeah. You don't want to see me with short hair.
Let me say in the AFL. Oh, Harley.
Hey, you've been a great guest.
Thanks
for coming in.
Hey, we got some gifts.
Oh yes,
We do have some gifts.
Yeah, exactly.
Always have some gifts, which is good.
Sorry, thanks for that.
And we got a couple of them as well.
Oh, really?
One for your uncle.
We do have one for your uncle at the back, Steve. But this is yours, Hals. Chug that up.
Perfect.
Put that through the camera there.
Yeah, that's a little presentation.
Yeah, love it.
You are now officially gettable. So I want to see you with that on somewhere.
We're on draft night.
Yeah.
Do the old reveal after every goal or so.
I appreciate you having coming in today, Harley.
Yeah,
and, good luck for the rest of the season, and good luck for what's to come.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that was fun, Kel.
That was great.
I want to see his first goal. I want to see a shotgun, a barometer-style shotgun.
He'll be watching, so there's the challenge over to you, Harley. He spoke really well, didn't he? I think we got the sense of what makes Harley tick. There's a level of confidence there, no doubt, and some swagger, but there's also a down-to-earth nature about him that he takes all the ride as it comes. And clearly the No.1 chat isn't getting to him at all. Just relax, sit back.
And some drive to him as well,
yeah,
which I like. All right,
he's a star.
let's bring out the gong.
Okay.
Gettable or not gettable?
Yep, it's back.
We put out the request on
By popular
Instagram
demand.
at Gettable. We put out the request on Instagram last night. Do we want some gettable or not gettable?
I've been
Mentions
told to
Cal.
Properly
Bang it if you think someone's properly gettable.
Okay.
Sam Flanders. Oh, that's a proper bang.
Out of contract, dropped last week. Gettable for sure. Had been holding off talks for a little bit before getting a run at it, but has been in and out of the side this season. Victorian. I think there'll be clubs watching him.
Taran Thomas.
Yeah, gettable. This is going to be a fascinating case. I'm not sure which way this one goes. It's going to be really interesting from here because he's got 12 months really to prove to North Melbourne and to other clubs that he's ready for an AFL career and to stick at the top level beyond this season. So clearly a class above VFL level. Still has two police allegations against him at the moment, but will a club give his talent a run? Because he's got a year to go on his contract. They'll all be doing their due diligence, clearly. I look at the Giants and think, he's got Sydney links, given he spent a lot of his youth growing up there. And would there be an opportunity where they send a pick back that's reasonable if North Melbourne, chip in a fair bit for his deal?
Mark Pitney.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, you went to gong and you took it away.
As an NG and nearly gettable. Has a lot of interest and a lot of suitors. I think at this stage, though, is more likely to stay. Talks haven't started on a new deal, but I think that's where it sits at the moment.
Jeremy Sharp. Gettable.
Look at it go. Extremely gettable. Wanted to be at Freo last year. Didn't happen. Hasn't played this year. Out of contract. That's an EG.
The No.1 pick. Oh, he's left it.
No. No.1 pick is there. Pending West Coast having it.
Yeah, that's
so
what
Hawthorn or it's a PG. It's pending gettable. Hawthorn or North Melbourne won't be tempted to trade it, but I think the Eagles would have to consider a souped-up offer.
Yeah.
Of early picks if they had a stability concern around
I like that phrase, souped up offer.
But I think you'd have to, if they had a stability concern around Harley. He's spoke before around being keen and open to go anywhere. There's obviously a Victorian element to where he's grown up. So that's something that I'd have to definitely think about.
Jack Higgins.
Yep. Not gettable, I don't think, at the moment, but is increasing in value. 19 goals this year. He's in talks for a multi-year deal. I think he's really increased his value this year. 9 games. He's on track for 40-plus goals. So he is interesting. Ben Hobbs is one I want to talk about. I'm going to go with not gettable.
Oh, you can't fake out our listeners like that.
It's like that cricket, the big bash umpire that went. No, not gettable, Ben Hobbs. He talks of sped up on his contract.
Yeah.
2-year extension now very much in the works. That's likely to be signed soon. So he'll be staying at the Bombers, set to say no to rival interest and re-sign there. I think that'll be happening pretty soon. So that's good signs for the Bombers. He's been really good since he got back into that team. Not gettable, Ben Hobbs staying at the Bombers.
Miles Bergman.
Little one. In top form. What's he worth in the open market? Look,
he was a first-round pick back then.
First-round pick. He's going to be around that point again at this rate. He's in super touch, and I really like him as a player. As we wrote last week in Inside Trading, not in a rush to sign on.
Ned Moyle.
Power desperate to keep him, as they should be. I don't know. He's a TBC gong. TBCGONG. He's contracted for another year at the Suns, so that makes them in the prime position to hold him. But he does have clubs coming for him, and with Drew right because he's a good player.
Elliot Himmelberg at the Crows.
A little bit. I mean, he's contracted for next year, but others have jumped through it past him. Does the club try and wrench him out to be the next sort of Billy Frampton?
I like it. Aaron Norton.
Not gettable.
Not gettable.
This year. Next year, he's going to be close to the biggest name on the market.
Yes.
The biggest name he might even be on the market. There's already significant interest in him from WA and in Victoria. He won't be going anywhere this year, but there's no doubt those talks are going to be everywhere next year. I think he'll get offers from the Bulldogs to stay, but also to leave of 6+ years. He's a superstar.
Jack Silvani.
Little
one.
gettable. He's done his contracts late in the year. September, the last one, and before that, August. I like using this.
It's like a new wand. Bring back the Wizards.
What do you think about?
Chosen to park talks for now. I think a little bit gettable, but as you mentioned, has always tended to do it late. I think there's a willingness from Carlton to start talks as soon as possible, but I think there's a willingness for him just to wait and see particularly how Tom DeConing and Mark Pitney sort themselves out ahead of him.
Yep.
Nathan Broad?
Yeah, PG, potentially gettable.
Give it a little ring. If you're a free agent and you're not signed at this stage of the year, you're always potentially gettable.
Yeah, that's right.
Ash Johnson?
I'm going to go with not gettable. He's got a trigger in his contract, but I think that his form would mean that as much as clubs are watching him, and they should be, and they should be interested, I think Collingwood would surely keep him. He's been too good.
And Brody Kemp to finish. Yes.
That's a gettable. Came in for 2 games, then out. First-round pick from a few years ago.
Actually thought he played pretty well in those 2 games as well.
But unsigned beyond this year, and I think he's G.
I like it. Cal, I've loved your work today.
I've loved yours, Riley. I've loved Harley Reid.
He's fantastic. Plenty more to come.
One of our best shows, I reckon.
It certainly was. Plenty more to come on afl.com.au this week. Inside Trading on Thursday morning. All of the latest trade, draft and free agency news. Keep up to date there on afl.com.au. And we'll see you next week on Gettable.